My name is Irene Osborn. I'm a ceramic artist. My work deals with attitudes and emotions. I want to thank Professor Ann Story, my teacher at the Evergreen State College, who inspired me with her hands-on art history lectures and pointed me towards clay. I'm also indebted to Joanne Gaither and Mike Moran, who taught me everything I know about my craft. It all started with the defiant attitudes of 2,000-year-old stone dogs, totems from the Leshu province in the south of China. The only way I could get anywhere near having these coveted creatures in my home was to try making dogs like that myself. So in 2008, I stopped making functional wear and started making these dogs with attitude. But after a while, and dozens of these dogs, it was not enough, and the challenge became how to capture emotions and attitude observed in the human figure. I think that the wave really does not need an explanation. It is the moment when the dreaded news is delivered or the devastating discovery is made and life is permanently changed. The wave and the figure are the same color and material, since I'm really trying to depict a state of mind and am not striving for realism. What now? Where does one go from here? After the collapse, stunned, how can one pick oneself up and go on? Maybe the realization that, yes, there is a way out of the box. Growing up in a very liberal household in Germany, I was not allowed to stand with my arms folded or worse, have my hands on my hips. That was not ladylike or demure enough. When I started these sculptures, I had no idea that this little act of rebellion would make me quite uncomfortable. I became aware that I was tearing down a taboo. The longer I worked on these ladies, the more liberated I felt. I also want to point out the slumping and dragging of the figure on the right. I switched to a different clay after that. I am not sure that the woman in Through the Wall is actually aware of what she has achieved. It might dawn on her later or not. Maybe only others observed it. I like the ambiguity of it. My much admired teacher, Mike Moran, only ever gave technical advice, and for this sculpture it was invaluable. You can never add the two halves of the figure to the wall. It will be impossible to match front and back. Mike suggested to start with the figure and then add the wall. Not that the struggle with the technical difficulties was over, but the piece was doable. This is a later version, since the first slumped during the firing. I often start with the face. I rework it until it takes on a personality of its own and lets me know which direction it wants to go. With chemotherapy, I had the face. It got more and more serious until it reached the stage you see it now. Then I tried to do the hair. I love to do hair on my sculptures, but this time I failed utterly. After many attempts, I decided the fault must be with the shape of the head. So I wiped off all the hair and there was chemotherapy. The doubt was gone. The rest of the figure, the placement of the arms, etc., followed logically. Cassandra, Helen of Troy's tragic sister, was a clairvoyant, believed by nobody. Therefore, the Cassandra warning is a term used in Germany to describe a warning that was ignored with disastrous results. I was thinking of all the Cassandra warnings before the Iraq War, the financial crisis, and now the climate crisis, etc. I also thought of the Cassandra warnings in the family settings. Warnings from parents, siblings, kids, etc. ignored and only later remembered as I told you so. Nighttime or Nachtgespenster, the German word for thoughts or ghosts that haunt you in the night. Or One Blind Eye is a piece of many titles, and I think everybody can find their own. I decided that it would work best as a high-relief sculpture, as a body would only change or lessen the impact. Any gesture would pin the emotions down and leave less room for the viewer to put his or her own interpretation into it. While working on addiction, I had to cover her face because it was too distracting to be confronted by the pain and desperation. Addiction is all around us and often a hidden sorrow in our own families. This is a sculpture of compassion for the addict. Conversation is an interactive piece. The glass is both mirrored and see-through on both sides. So are you talking and listening to yourself, or the other, or both? Commitment. She is not discontent, but serenely aware of her commitment. It is part of her, and yes, she can get up and leave, but at her own peril. She would never be the same. She would be forever changed. Commitment to, or how come I did not notice? The commitment has led to the loss of self. Pregnant woman. She is looking into the future, not with the saccharine sweetness of commercials, but with the true awareness of the commitment she has taken on. I still remember when women, especially teachers, would lose their jobs when they became pregnant. Society expected women to hide their expanding waistline as if it was offensive to others. So this is another of my defiant women. Decades ago, when I was nursing my daughter, I was expected to hide in the bathroom so not to offend. I was outraged then, and I could not believe that the same daughter faced the same attitudes nursing her baby so many years later. Nothing had changed. Celebrating Mother's Day is a great commercial venture, but where is the real support for mothers? Strike. I was born in Germany just before the end of World War II, 3 weeks after my hometown Würzburg had been carpet-bombed and 90% destroyed. I grew up only slowly becoming aware of the horrible past that my pacifist parents had to endure. When history started to repeat itself with the terrible treatment of refugees and asylum seekers that culminated in the separation of families and concentration camps in my new homeland, the USA, I had to speak out. My parents did not have this luxury of protesting, but I could through my art. Refugee. Why should the reaction to a mother and child change just because she has survived harrowing circumstances? I tried to make the back reflect her hard past. She can barely hold herself and her baby up. Why should there be no help for her and the baby? She is not a danger to our society. She thought they would be safe once they crossed the border. In front of the immigration judge, unaccompanied toddlers were expected to defend themselves in front of judges. Reaction to the separation of children from their families. Separated children in for-profit facilities. Children were treated like commodities, as if they had a price tag. The strict isolation of loved ones during COVID-19 haunts me. The thought of each of us having to battle this alone. To lose a loved one without being able to give comfort is a nightmare. Comfort.